The diamond bracelet slipped from my wrist and hit the marble floor with a delicate clink. My daughter-in-law didn't even blink. "Oh, she's fine," she laughed, waving her champagne glass. "She just gets confused sometimes." The room chuckled. I wasn't confused. I was remembering the exact moment I signed over the deed to the lake house, her wedding gift. And as she toasted her friends, smug and cruel, I made a silent promise. "You wanted to treat me like I'm disposable? You're about to find out what happens when the woman you underestimated owns everything you stand on." Before we begin, if you've ever been underestimated, used, or pushed aside by the people you loved most, this story is for you. Tap that subscribe button and share your thoughts in the comments. Your voice matters here. Now, let's begin. I'm Evelyn Graves. I'm 68 years old, and I used to think that family meant love. Unconditional, warm, messy love. That belief cost me over $120,000, and nearly my sanity. It started 3 years ago, on a bright June afternoon, the day my son Matthew married Sophia. Sophia, with her porcelain smile and expensive taste, was the kind of woman who made other women feel small, on purpose. She walked like every hallway was a runway, every conversation a power play. But Matthew adored her, and I adored Matthew, so I smiled. I played the role of the doting mother-in-law. I helped plan the wedding, paid for the flowers, the caterer, and as my wedding gift, I handed them the keys to my lake house. It was a modest property on the water, paid off with my late husband's pension and decades of careful saving. I thought they'd build memories there, raise children, host holidays, maybe even invite me over for Sunday dinner. They didn't. Within 6 months, they'd renovated the kitchen, torn out my rose garden, and posted photos online calling it their dream starter home. Not once did they mention my name. But I didn't say anything. I let it go. Love is patient, right? Over time, I noticed something strange. Sophia never called me Mom, or even Evelyn. She called me Matthew's mother, like I was a category in her budget. When I visited, she'd flinch if I brought over food. "Oh, we're mostly organic now," she'd say, glancing at my casserole like it was radioactive. At first, I thought it was generational, but then, little things started to pile up. My birthday came and went. No card. I heard from a neighbor that Sophia hosted a baby shower at the lake house. For her friend, not a family member. I wasn't invited. Matthew's voice, once warm and frequent, became shorter, quieter, almost scripted. Then came the dinner. It was Easter. I'd brought deviled eggs and a pie. Sophia answered the door in a silk robe, raised an eyebrow, and said, "We weren't expecting you so early." But I was right on time. I smiled, handed her the food, and stepped inside. The table was already full. Her parents, her friends, even Matthew's co-workers. Not one seat had been set for me. "Oh," she said, glancing at the table. "Well, I guess we can squeeze you in." I stood there holding a homemade pie while Sophia whispered behind me, "She's just always showing up, like she needs to prove something." Later that evening, I caught her saying to a friend, "She acts like we owe her for the house. I mean, it's not like she's poor." That was the moment something cracked in me. No, I wasn't poor, but I'd been treated like I was cheap. Over the next few months, things got worse. I found out through a mutual friend that Sophia had registered the lake house under both her and Matthew's name. Not just as residents, but as owners. She told people they'd bought it from a family friend. A lie so bold I could barely breathe. When I brought it up to Matthew, he looked down and mumbled, "It's just paperwork, Mom. You said it was a gift." A gift, right. Like I was the old woman in a fairy tale, handing out magic beans and hoping someone remembers my name. Still, I said nothing. Not yet. Because sometimes, when the world hands you silence, you learn how to sharpen it into a weapon. One morning, I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of tea and a pen. I started writing down everything, every payment, every contribution, every promise made and broken. I wasn't angry, not yet, but I was preparing. And then came the charity gala, A fundraiser Sophia had been organizing for weeks. Of course, she didn't invite me. I found out through a newsletter that the venue was, wait for it, my lake house. Yes, my lake house, transformed into a rustic luxury retreat space with rented lighting, Instagram influencers, and signature cocktails named after her initials. That night, I showed up unannounced, wearing a navy blue suit and my mother's brooch. Sophia's eyes widened when she saw me. "Oh, Evelyn," she purred. "Didn't know you'd be here." "I live here," I said, smiling. "Or had you forgotten?" The photographer raised his camera. "Oh, she's fine," Sophia said to the crowd. "She just gets confused sometimes." The room laughed. I didn't. I turned to the photographer, straightened my back, and said, "Take the photo." He did, but not before capturing the precise second Sophia's smile faltered, when she realized the woman she'd erased from the narrative was about to write her own ending. They say revenge is a dish best served cold. I say it's best served legally, with documentation. After the gala, after the laughter, after Sophia treated me like a coat left on a chair, something inside me shifted. I wasn't sad anymore. I was focused, clear. I began pulling records, bank transfers, deed signatures, email threads, anything that painted a picture of what had really happened over the last 3 years. The more I gathered, the more I realized I hadn't just given them a house. I'd funded Sophia's entire lifestyle, from the kitchen renovation to the luxury vacations, from Matthew's Tesla lease to Sophia's wellness retreats. All of it, me. And they had the nerve to call me confused? No, not confused. Not anymore. I scheduled an appointment with my lawyer, Mr. Jameson, a man who looked like a librarian but fought like a Doberman. I handed him the folder I'd compiled. He flipped through it silently, page after page. When he reached the notarized deed transfer I'd signed 3 years ago, before Sophia even changed her last name, he frowned. "You gave them the house, but never transferred the land title." I blinked. "What?" He nodded. "You signed over the structure, but the land underneath? That's still yours. Legally, they can't sell it, refinance it, or even make certain renovations without your consent." I sat there in stunned silence. They'd built a castle on a foundation that wasn't theirs. Mr. Jameson leaned forward. "Do you want to pursue this?" I didn't answer right away. I thought about Matthew, about how his eyes used to light up when he was little and I brought home cinnamon rolls. I thought about the boy who held my hand when I was recovering from surgery. I thought about the man he'd become. But then I thought about that night at the gala. The laughter. The photo. The way Sophia's voice dripped with disdain when she called me confused. "Yes," I said. "Let's proceed." Over the next few weeks, I made myself scarce. No Sunday visits, no texts. I didn't even comment on Sophia's Instagram posts, which she'd started tagging with Dollar Lake House vibes. Let her enjoy the view. The quiet made them nervous. 2 weeks later, Matthew showed up at my apartment with a bottle of wine and a sheepish smile. "Mom, you've been quiet. Is everything okay?" I looked at my son, really looked at him. There was a tiredness in his eyes, a weariness I hadn't noticed before, or maybe I'd been too hurt to see it. "I'm fine," I said. "Just stepping back a little." His brow furrowed. "Sophia thinks you're upset." "I'm sure she does." We sat in silence. He poured us each a glass. I let him talk, about the kids, about work, about his stress, and slowly, pieces started falling into place. "She handles all the finances," he said, eyes down. "She's better at it, keeps everything organized, says I get overwhelmed." I nodded. "And how are your credit cards doing?" He hesitated. "Maxed." "And savings?" A long pause. "Gone." I sipped my wine. "You didn't marry a wife, Matthew. You married a manager." He looked away. I could have laid everything out right there, told him about the legal loophole, the deed, the missing land title, but I didn't, because I wasn't ready to tell. I was ready to show. The notice went out the following week. A formal letter, sent via my attorney, notifying Matthew and Sophia that due to breach of verbal agreement and continued disregard for my contributions, I was reasserting ownership of the land the lake house sat on. They had 60 days to either purchase the land outright at market rate, begin legal mediation, or vacate the property. The reaction was immediate. Sophia called me, furious. "You vindictive old woman! You gave us that house." "I gave you a home," I said calmly. "You turned it into a trophy, and now the pedestal's crumbling. You'll regret this." "No, dear," I replied. "You will. Especially when the foundation you built your social life on turns out to be made of sand." She hung up. That night, Matthew called too. His voice cracked. "Mom, what's going on?" "You want the truth?" I said. "Come to dinner. Just you." He did. I cooked his favorite, roast chicken, green beans, garlic bread. We sat at the table like old times. I handed him the folder, the receipts, the records, the proof. He read in silence for 20 minutes. When he finally looked up, tears welled in his eyes. "I didn't know. I swear, I didn't know." "I believe you," I said, "but you needed to." He looked at me like a boy again, broken and unsure. "What happens now?" "That depends," I said softly, "on whether you're willing to rebuild something real or stay in a life built on lies." Sophia doubled down. She posted online that she was being financially abused by an elderly relative, that she was reclaiming her peace. She even started a GoFundMe. I almost laughed. But when she received a cease and desist from my lawyer for defamation, the campaign vanished. People started asking questions, and I wasn't hiding anymore. Not from Sophia, not from Matthew, and not from myself, because dignity doesn't retire at 60, and respect isn't something you earn once. It's something you protect every day. I thought I was giving a gift. What I gave was power. And now, I was taking it back. I used to think forgiveness was the highest virtue, that if I just smiled through the pain, stayed generous, and didn't cause trouble, things would work out. But that was before Sophia tried to weaponize my kindness. Now, I believe in accountability, and she was about to experience all of it. The community began whispering long before Sophia realized it. Her GoFundMe had backfired. The comments were brutal. "Wait, didn't your mother-in-law give you the house? Why not sell one of your purses before asking strangers for money?" Screenshots were circulating. People were connecting dots. The same woman who had posted luxury vacation selfies, designer bags, and $500 spa visits was now claiming she was being financially abused by the woman who paid for her wedding and her home. She went private on Instagram. She posted cryptic quotes like, "Not everyone deserves your story." And still, she didn't know everything was already in motion. Matthew came to see me 2 weeks after our dinner. He looked older, tired, but determined. "I confronted her," he said quietly. "And?" "She denied everything, then blamed me. Said I was weak for letting you manipulate us, said you were jealous of her." I almost smiled. "Did you believe her?" He shook his head. "I saw the bank records, the photos, the lies." He took a deep breath. "I want out. I'm filing for separation." It wasn't what I expected to hear, but it was what needed to happen. And then he added something else. "She tried to transfer $50,000 from our joint account last week. When I froze the transaction, she lost it, screamed for an hour, said I ruined her escape plan." "Escape plan?" "She was planning to disappear, Mom, just like you said." Turns out she had already been moving funds through a consulting business no one had ever seen. And a week later, Matthew found a burner phone in the glove box of her car, full of messages to someone named Leo. The police called me the next morning. It was Detective Hammond this time, not Detective Reeves. "Mrs. Foster, we've issued a warrant for Amanda Foster's arrest. She's being charged with financial fraud, identity manipulation, and falsification of tax documents." I swallowed. "Will my son be implicated?" "Not if he cooperates. And if your documentation holds up, you've helped protect him." Amanda was arrested outside a boutique fitness studio, wearing a $300 athleisure set, holding an $8 smoothie. Matthew was granted full custody of the kids within 48 hours. Turns out the bank accounts weren't the only things she'd been manipulating. She'd lied about school enrollment, forged daycare records, and used her own mother's social security number on several applications. The judge didn't hesitate. She was remanded without bail. And me? I stood in the middle of the lake house the day after the arrest. Sunlight poured through the kitchen window, lighting up the marble countertops I'd paid for. There was silence, the kind that feels like peace. Matthew had signed the house back over, not out of guilt, but gratitude. "Do what you want with it," he'd said. "It was never really ours." I walked through each room slowly, remembering every insult, every fake smile, every time Sophia had rolled her eyes when I suggested family dinners. This house had once been a dream. Now, it would be something else. 3 months later, I opened the doors to the Foster Retreat, a weekend wellness home for women over 60 recovering from grief, betrayal, and burnout. Funded entirely by the early inheritance I never gave Sophia. Furnished with pieces that didn't require apology or permission. Every bedroom bore a quote etched in brass: "You are not too old, and it is not too late." I hosted our first group on a sunny Friday. 5 women arrived, some crying before they stepped through the door. One had been ghosted by her children. Another had lost her husband and hadn't spoken a full sentence in weeks. One had just finalized a divorce after 42 years of marriage. They all thought they were alone. But as the weekend unfolded, stories shared over soup and wine and soft blankets, they began to laugh again, to breathe again, to live again. One night, sitting by the fireplace, a woman named Linda asked me quietly, "Where did you get the strength to fight back?" I looked into the flames for a moment. Then I answered, "Because one day I realized I was the only one who could." As for Sophia, she took a plea deal. 2 years in a correctional facility and 5 years of probation, plus mandatory restitution. The press didn't cover it. The world didn't explode. Her friends moved on. But I'll never forget the last words she said to me in the courtroom hallway. "You ruined everything." I smiled. "No, Sophia, you did. I just stopped cleaning up after you. Today, I stand taller. Not because I won, but because I refused to disappear. They tried to make me invisible, to treat me like a bank account with a name, to laugh at my silence. But I used that silence to plan something stronger than revenge. I used it to reclaim my voice. If you believe she did the right thing, comment. She never needed their approval. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories just like this, because your story matters, and it's never too late to write the ending you deserve.